Hey guys, Frosty Knives here, back with another book review, and we are halfway through our journey of Malazan, Book of the Fallen, if you can believe that. We are on book 5, Midnight Tides, in our journey, and we are at the halfway point. Cue your favorite Bon Jovi song. We're halfway there. So let's get all of the particulars out of the way for this book before we get into the review. So this book was published in 2004, and it clocks in at 932 pages. So a little bit shorter than House of Change, smidge shorter. And let's read the back of the book. After decades of internecine warfare, the tribes of the Taista have at last united under the warlock king of the Heroth. There's peace, but it has been exacted at a terrible price. A pact made with a hidden power whose motives are at best suspect, at worst deadly. To the south, the expansionist kingdom of Lether, eager to fulfill its long prophesied renaissance as an empire reborn, has enslaved with rapacious hunger all its less civilized neighbors. All, that is, save one, the Taista, and it must only be a matter of time before they too fall, either beneath the suffocating weight of gold or by slaughter at the edge of a sword, or so destiny has decreed. Yet as the two sides gather for a pivotal treaty, neither truly wants ancient forces are awakening. For the impending struggle between these two peoples is but a pale reflection of a far more profound primal battle, a confrontation charged with the still raw wound of an old betrayal and the craving for revenge at its seething heart. That's a lot of information to take in for that book. So let me just say off the top that I loved this book. This book has become my second favorite of the first 5 books of the series. So in previous videos I have told you that Deadhouse Gates is my favorite. This is my second favorite. I immensely enjoyed this book. And this book is a little unique. Once again, Erikson did something unique. Just like he did something unique with House of Chains, where he took the first quarter of the book and dedicated it to a single character. This book is a backstory. So we have the first 4 books of the series, and then we have a dead stop here, and then Erikson tells us the backstory of one specific character that we were introduced to at House of Chains. He gives us the backstory of Trull Sengar, and we get to hear about the Letheri Empire, and we get to hear more about the Taista. So he gives us this whole backstory between the Adur Empire and the Letheri Empire, and the whole story between the two of why they're warring. And this is actually a prequel of sorts, because the events in this book take place before the events of Gardens of the Moon. I'm not really sure how far before Gardens of the Moon this book takes place, but we know that this happens before the beginning of the series, and maybe some of the events towards the end of the book, maybe some of it starts to run into the series. So we're getting the backstory of 2 empires warring, as sort of a break between the first half of the series and what I'm going to imagine is the second half of the series. And Steven Erikson has done something that I didn't think was possible in this book. He took a character that I didn't care about in House of Change, that I found to be boring, that I wasn't really invested in, that I never said, I want to hear more about this character. I'm itching to find out about what more of their story. He took that character, Trull, and he made him interesting. He actually made that character interesting and the history of the Taistadur and the history of the Lothari Empire and everything that was going on, the war between the two of the empires, all of that was very, very interesting. I really, really enjoyed this book. I enjoyed reading about the Adur. I enjoyed reading about the Lothari Empire. I enjoyed reading about their burial rituals, which are extremely unique. The Lothari Empire is a capitalist society. Their entire focus, their goal in life is gold, is money, is acquiring. They're extremely Ferengi-like, except they're more warlike than the Ferengi, if you catch that Star Trek reference. So their whole goal in life is to acquire gold. And they have slaves. And that's the whole point of what they do. So it's very interesting to see this take on this extremely capitalist-driven society, parallels to what we have in our own societies, and how the Adur handle that, and how the Lothari have sort of conquered all of the little tribes around them and subsumed them and brought them into their empire and have made slaves of them and have done all of that. And now it's just the Adur that's left, and we have this conflict and this clash. And it was extremely well written. It's the first novel of the series, and this is going to sound weird, but it's the first novel of the series that reads like a novel. That reads, that it's not jarring, it's easy to follow. You have a smaller scale story, a little more compact. We went back to how Gardens of the Moon was, which was a smaller scale. We were looking at an event between two empires, two peoples. We're looking at that. We're looking at a smaller scale. Other than Trull, everybody that you meet in this book are new. Again, he's just introducing new characters, but they're interesting characters. There's a lot of interesting characters in this book. All of Trull's family, his brothers, they're all very interesting. Tehol and Bug were some of my favorite characters in this book that Erikson gave us there. So we have a good, eclectic, interesting mix of people, of characters, and a good story of what's going on. The dialogue, again, is great. This was a fairly easy to follow book, as in there's a lot of information that you're getting, but you're getting it in a way that is easy to digest. The story is fairly easy to follow. There's not a lot of confusion, and either I'm at a point now where I just understand Erikson's writing, and now I can finally follow him, or this book was just like House of Chains. It's just a little easier to access, because House of Chains was the same way. It wasn't as confusing as all the other books. It was easier to access, and this book, again, was just easy to access for me. And like Deadhouse Gates, like I said in the review for Deadhouse Gates, how Deadhouse Gates is a book that you could conceivably read on its own as a novel. You have a sort of a complete story. The same goes with Midnight Tides. There's a few things in there that you might say, "Oh, what is that?" You might not understand, because it's sort of referencing other things. But on the whole, you could read Midnight Tides as a story, as a compact story novel, and it would be okay without knowing a lot of the backstory around it. It was a good break. We had the breakneck speed of Gardens and Deadhouse and Memories and House of Chains, and I said he slowed down a little bit in House of Chains from that breakneck speed, and now he just dead stops and gives us a backstory and a prequel of events that I'm going to assume is going to be relevant to the last 5 books of the series. So This was a phenomenal read. It was a wonderful read. It was slightly shorter. It's funny to say that because it's still 930 some odd pages, but it was slightly shorter. So it felt good because it was a little shorter than all the other books. And then we go back. We go back to the last 5 books, and from what I understand, the last 5 books takes everything that Erikson has given us in the first 5, ties it all together, and gives us a nice straight shot storyline to the end, bringing all of the character arcs, bringing all of the events, bringing everything together, and we go to a resolution. And that's good because the next 5 books, they're all 1,200 pages. So I have 5 books of minimum 1,200 pages each, minimum. I do not believe there is a single book in the last 5 novels that is under 1,200 pages. Some are more. I believe there's a couple of 1,300 pages books in the last 5. And so now we're getting into, he's given us 5 books of setup and characters and arcs and trauma and everything. And now we're getting 5 books of resolution. And we're just going to have to hunker down knowing that I'm going into 5 1,200-page novels to wrap up this series. So I'm very excited to see where all of these threads that we've been following, all of these characters, all of these arcs, all of these backstories, all of these talks of gods and ascendants, mythologies. I'm excited to see where this is going. I have kind of ideas, but I don't think they're right. I don't think any of it is right because it's amazing to me, having read the first 5 books and hearing all about these wonderful incidents and stories and characters that Erikson has so much more story to tell. But we do. We got 5 more. We're halfway through. We made it. And if you're watching this review and you've followed along, you've made it with me. So now we plow on to the end. I took a small break between books because I had to. I had to stop and digest, think about it, let it ruminate and marinate in my head. And after this current book that I'm reading, which is for my book club, I'm going to jump right back into Malazan because I don't want to leave it for too long. I want to get back into it, even though I'm reading other books. I read another book. I read 2 other books. I was only supposed to read one, but didn't like it. So I'm reading another book as sort of palate cleansers. Even though I'm reading other books, I'm still thinking about this universe, about these characters, about this world. And that is the mark of a great story, when you're still thinking about it. You know, you've stopped reading, or you've taken a break, you're digesting, and you're moving on to other things, or watching other movies, playing other video games, you're reading other books, but you're still thinking about it. It's still in your head. These characters are still living in your mind, and you go, I wonder what's going to happen to these guys. I wonder what's going to happen to this person or that person. I hope they don't die. Probably will. So guys, that's my review of Midnight Tides. My second favorite Malazan book in the first 5. And if I had to rank them, the first 5 in order, I would say Dead House Gates is my first favorite. Midnight Tides is my second favorite. They're both sort of tied for my favorites. Those are the 2 I like the most. And then we have Gardens, and then we have Memories. And then just slightly, is House of Change. And not to say that House of Change was a bad book, because it wasn't. But just, if we got to rank them, we got to have a winner and we got to have a beginning and an end. And House of Change is at the end of that particular list. And that may change because we got 5 more books to go. So all of this my favorite books, the ones I like, all of this will shuffle because we got 5 more bloated books to read, and that may change the order of the ones that I like, and we may have some good books coming down the pike. And I am really, really excited to see how he is going to wrap up this story. Because I have no idea. I have no idea how he's going to resolve all of this. And I am really looking forward to that. So guys, that is my review of Midnight Tides. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed all of these books. If you've started reading them because you've seen these reviews and you were interested and you started reading the series, I hope you enjoyed the books. I hope you enjoy your own journey through Malazan because it's fantastic in my opinion. It's some of the most unique and fantastic series that I've read in a very long time. So guys, that's my review. Give it a thumbs up, give it a subscribe, give it a share it around, tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your dog catchers, tell those little pigeons out there that want to build a nest in your trees. Tell anybody that will listen. And until next time, I will see you in the next video.